Premier Campbell. It's exactly the way I wrote it. Just joking. He has been a terrific partner and a great friend, and of course we will see each other up there at the Olympics, which is going to be probably the best organized Olympics knowing you. So thank you very much also for your invitation. I also want to thank also Governor Jose Sierra for the wonderful speech and the very profound things that you said. And you have been also an extraordinary leader, so thank you very much. Let's give him also again another big round. And then Ivo de Boer from the UN, we want to thank him for organizing this and being a great leader and believing in the subnational governments. And also we have from California here some people like Linda Adams, who is in charge of the EPA. Where's Linda Adams? Stand up, Linda. Who's always Senator Fran Powerfully, who is a great leader. Where is she? Extraordinary leader in California. Without her, we wouldn't have been able to go as far as we did with the reduction of greenhouse gases and so on. And then we have Assemblywoman Nancy Skinner. Where is she? She's also here. I love giving the speech here just simply because I'm not the only one that has an accent. It's a good place to come. But anyway, it is wonderful to be back here again. So before I say anything and do anything, let me just thank the UN and the people who have worked very hard on this to make this whole meeting happening. Let's give them a big hand for the great organization. I especially want to thank Secretary General Ban Ki-moon for his early attention to the threat of global climate change, and I want to congratulate him on his great leadership on the issue that has brought us all together. I'm delighted and honored to be here with you in Copenhagen. This is not the first time I've been here. I've been here many times before, if it is for my movie promotions, or for coming here and for bodybuilding and weightlifting seminars, or just on vacation and so on. But I never thought then that one day I would get here as the governor of the great state and talk about climate change. So this is really terrific. So it's great, and this city, of course, distinguishes itself for being so clean that you can actually swim in its harbor. Even though I wouldn't recommend it right now because it's a little cold, of course. But how happy we would be if all the world's harbors would be as clean. As everyone knows, also in the harbor there is a little mermaid, a statue based on a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale. Now, when I was a boy in Austria, the Andersen fairy tale that I always liked best was The Ugly Duckling. And looking back, I think the reason that I liked it was because it was a tale of transformation. That spoke to me inside. I've always believed in the tremendous power of personal transformation. The desire, and the hope, and the desperate need for planetary transformation is what brought us together here. And the question is this also a fairy tale? Is it a dream? Is it a false hope? And if it is not, how do we make it real? Is that something that we ought to discuss? And this is something that I do want to discuss here while I'm here with you. Look around this carbon-conscious city, and you should feel hope. Copenhagen is often voted as one of the most livable cities in the world. So the question really is, how do we make the world itself livable and sustainable? Certainly it would be terrific if the world's governments reached an agreement and put hard caps on greenhouse gases, while generously helping poor nations, who are least responsible for and least able to respond to climate change. Attempting to reach such an agreement is good and is actually very important. But why do we put so many hopes and eggs into the big international agreement basket? When according to the UN itself, up to 80% of greenhouse gas mitigation will be done at the sub-national level. In recent weeks, the prospect of this gathering here have gone up and down like a roller coaster ride. And everyone was in fear. What would the US do? What would China do or not do? Is it going to be 20% reductions or 17% reductions? Is the base 1990 or 2005? Should it be 350 parts per million or 450 parts per million? But what if I say that international agreements, as critical as they are, would never do enough? What is if we took that as a given? Wouldn't that expand the possibilities and approaches for progress we would consider? I mean, my late mother-in-law, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, the remarkable woman who started Special Olympics, an organization that dedicates itself to people with intellectual disabilities, gave me an insight on this. She was the sister of John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy and Teddy Kennedy, and she knew everyone in American power and politics. But she once told me that while the federal government was important for policies related to Special Olympics, such as health care, equal rights, job creation, dental care, and so on, but she never would have relied solely on the federal government to build Special Olympics. She said you needed all kinds of different elements and entities, like local government, state government, volunteers, corporate sponsors, coaches, celebrities, and of course the families. She said no one from government is going to be there at the sports events and hug those kids when they come through the finish line, or organize the competition so there is a finish line in the first place. No one from government trains those kids so they don't hurt themselves or so they know how to perform those sports. She said no, that is up to many of us, many different entities. And she built a movement, a worldwide movement that has spread to 180 plus countries. So history tells us that movements began with the people, not with government. And then, when they become powerful enough, government responds. In the US, the labor movement, the women's suffrage movement, the civil rights movement, the Vietnam anti-war movement, they did not begin in the corridors of power in Washington. So there's a lesson in this for our cause. While national governments have been fighting over emission targets, subnational governments have been adopting their own targets and laws and policies. While national governments have been trying for years to define what Kyoto means, businesses are pursuing cutting-edge technologies to solve energy and environmental problems. While national governments debate how carbon caps will affect their economies compared to others, many of the citizens are seeking greener lifestyles on their own. Government clearly has a major role, there's no two ways about that, but I also believe in the power of the iconoclast and the entrepreneur and the individualist. I believe in the power of the scientist, the capitalist, and the activist. I believe in the power of the cities and the states and the provinces to be the laboratories for new ideas, which the national governments then can go and study and adopt. I mean, too often I think we fail to see the potential and the progress that is being made on all of those different levels. But putting all of our eggs in one basket, we fail to see the eggs in the other baskets. Let me give you a few quick examples. Dr. Rishandra Pujari, who came to our environmental summit in California just recently, he has his own target. He's replacing kerosene and paraffin lanterns with solar light for 400 million rural people in India. 400 million people in India. Think about that. So if the nations of the world do not sign a carbon agreement, does that mean that the doctor's transformative work in India doesn't count? In the US, in a small town in Roscoe, Texas, a German company has completed the world's largest wind farm. If we don't reach a major carbon agreement, does that mean that Texas wind farm doesn't really count? With the assistance of Greenpeace, 4 of the world's largest meat producers agreed not to buy cattle from newly deforested areas of the Amazon. That doesn't count? The head of an energy company in China recently said of renewable and efficient energy, we think that this is a new business for us, not a burden. And China now is becoming the leader in developing and manufacturing renewable energy equipment. That doesn't count? Yes, sure, they all count. And they reveal that something is happening. Something that is happening below the national level. California, for instance, is working with cities and with states and provinces and regions and nations, including Mexican states, Canadian and Chinese provinces and European nations. We're even working with the UN to assist developing countries, especially in Africa.